Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast in late August 2005, devastating New Orleans after levees failed and floodwaters swallowed entire neighborhoods. Officially, it was a natural disaster made worse by poor infrastructure and a slow government response. But conspiracy circles, they had other ideas. 1. The blown levees theory. Some locals, especially in the lower Ninth Ward, believed the levees didn't fail naturally. They were intentionally blown up to protect wealthier, whiter neighborhoods from flooding. Why? This idea isn't just paranoia out of thin air, it's rooted in history. In 1927, during the Great Mississippi Flood, officials actually did dynamite levees to save New Orleans' French Quarter, sacrificing poorer areas downstream. That historical trauma made people suspicious when levee failures during Katrina looked oddly clean in some spots, like controlled demolitions. 2. Weather modification theory. This one dives into the HAARP, High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, rabbit hole. Some conspiracy theorists claim the U.S. military, or shadowy global elites, can engineer hurricanes using atmospheric manipulation technology. In this version, Katrina was steered into New Orleans deliberately, either as a population control experiment, to trigger chaos for political and economic gain. The theory leans on the fact that Katrina suddenly intensified into a Category 5 in the Gulf before hitting land, which they argue is suspicious. 3. Ethnic cleansing by neglect. While not as sci-fi as HAARP, some believe the slow rescue response wasn't incompetence. It was intentional neglect aimed at displacing the city's large black population. The aftermath saw developers swoop in, rebuild certain areas, and price many lifelong residents out. To them, Katrina was less about the storm itself and more about who benefited afterward. This overlaps with the idea of disaster capitalism, using catastrophe as a way to reshape a city's demographics and economy. 4. The FEMA camp allegations in the days after Katrina. Rumors spread that FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, was herding survivors into stadiums and fenced-off areas, not just for shelter, but as a test run for mass detention under martial law. Some evacuees even claim they weren't allowed to leave certain safe zones freely. The lasting impact, even if you don't buy the theories. Katrina's chaos fed distrust in the government. The mix of genuine incompetence, historical precedent for betrayal, and suspicious power shifts afterward made New Orleans a perfect storm not just for a hurricane, but for conspiracy culture. The theory goes like this. Katrina wasn't just a tragedy, it was an opportunity for wealthy developers, oil companies, and politically connected corporations to take over valuable land in and around New Orleans, especially areas that were historically poor and predominantly black. The storm and the floodwaters displaced over 1 million people. Many fled the city with nothing, and in the chaos, thousands never returned. With homes destroyed and property taxes unpaid, land values plummeted, and that's where the grab supposedly happened. The big players named in the theory: 1. Developers and real estate investors. As soon as the water receded, big real estate firms began buying up properties dirt cheap. Entire blocks in the lower Ninth Ward were reportedly sold for pennies on the dollar. 2. Oil and gas companies. Katrina also gave political cover for new offshore drilling expansions along Louisiana's coast. Some theorists claim certain companies wanted to push residents away from sensitive coastal areas to make extraction easier. 3. Military contractors. Blackwater, the infamous private military firm, was deployed in New Orleans in the aftermath, supposedly to protect property. But some locals felt their presence was more about controlling certain neighborhoods during the transition. The school purge twist. Here's where it gets even darker. After Katrina, New Orleans' entire public school system was essentially dismantled. Almost all the teachers were fired, and the city shifted to a nearly charter school model. Critics say this was a corporate takeover of education under the guise of rebuilding better, and that Katrina simply provided the excuse. Billions in federal aid flowed into the city, but much of it didn't go directly to residents. Instead, it went to politically connected construction companies, security firms, and developers. FEMA trailers, many later found to have toxic formaldehyde, were supplied by companies with government ties. While neighborhoods like the lower Ninth Ward sat abandoned for years, the endgame, according to the theory, push out poorer residents, rebuild upscale housing and business districts, expand corporate interests, oil, gas, tourism, reshape the city's demographics to make it more politically predictable and economically profitable. And here's the eerie part. Within 10 years of Katrina, some of the hardest hit neighborhoods looked like entirely new cities, but many of the original residents never came back.